All right, back in the shop, and it's finally warm enough where I can finally wear a t-shirt, not a sweatshirt anymore. So that's kind of nice. But gonna be working on this thing today. And if you guys saw the last video, basically left off with taking the cylinder head off and finding this little score, or not little, and there's a few more on this side. Not as bad as this one though. This one's super deep. But I told you guys that we decided we're just going to try and put the cylinder head on and run it. Now, that was the original plan, but now we're building this engine. So, this video, I'm going to be removing this thing. And Mark already bought a few parts for this thing. So, alright, so to start off, obviously, you got to go with the King racing bearings. These are pretty good. It's pretty much the only ones we use here. Yeah, I've had really good luck with these. Never had a problem with them. So, got the rod bearings and crank bearings. And right here, got ourselves some rods. So, these are BC H-beams. I believe, yeah, these are H-beams. Good for about, I think, 650, 700 to the wheel. So, definitely going to be enough for what Mark is pushing right now, but that gives him a little room to go up. And also got ourselves some CP pistons. Now these things look pretty cool when they're new. But so rings right here, whatnot. So yeah, these things are stock compression ratio. We're going to keep stock compression because he is going to be putting a 3mm head gasket spacer in, so these will be fine. We didn't want to mess with the compression ratio, at least he didn't. Might as well stick with these. So these are obviously forged. These things he'll probably never have to worry about breaking. And we also got the new rocker arm from Honda, because if you guys saw the last video, one of the rollers broke, so got a new assembly right here, and a few other parts from Honda. Nothing crazy. And we also already have the cylinder head back from the machine shop with a new spring and retainer, and it's been decked. The head was warped, unfortunately, but wasn't too bad. I think it was, took 0.004 off. And yeah, so if you're wondering why you had to buy new pistons, this is FRM coated, which means that you cannot just bore this thing out and put in different pistons. You have to sleeve it. So that means that you can't run these stock pistons because they're made for the FRM coating, and that means you have to buy aftermarket pistons for it. And pretty much the only pistons you can run in these with FRM coating is either the stock ones, or I believe the Mally Gold pack, the Golds, Mally Golds, I believe. People run with the FRM coating, but FRM coating kind of stinks because you can't really do much. So this thing's getting sleeved, and that's why we got to pull it out. So now, basically went over what's going to be done to this, what's its future, whatnot. Gonna pull this thing out, so shouldn't be too hard. Should be a little easier anyways, because I already got the cylinder head off. Normally, when you're doing this, you just pull the whole thing out together, but we didn't know we were going to be doing this, and originally we were going to just put the cylinder head on and see how it ran, but now he's building this thing, so let's get into it. Alright, so most people, I believe, go ahead and pull the engine, transmission, and subframe out all together, and they lift the car up, drop it out from the bottom. I don't think I'm going to be doing that because I already got the cylinder head off, which makes pulling the block out 10 times easier, and I think I actually might even put it together like this, where I just put the block in and then the cylinder head on top later on, or once I got the block in. I think that would be a lot easier because these transmission bolts up top, when I put a clutch in this thing, were absolutely pain to get to. You really can't. So these, as you can see, there's basically no way to get it from under the car. Somehow I was able to do them, but definitely not fun. But with the cylinder head off, makes it pretty easy to get to these bolts up top. So probably just gonna do that this way, pull it out through the top. I'll probably pull the hood off and use this overhead crane right here. Actually, this is another project you guys will be seeing soon with one of my cars, which I haven't showed on the channel yet, really. But yeah, so I'll use this overhead crane take this hood off and just pull this thing right out. I already got the intake manifold disconnected because it was on the cylinder head. Got most of the stuff pretty much already disconnected. All the main stuff is really on the cylinder head. The exhaust is already off. I know I'm gonna have to disconnect a few things, obviously, a few connectors here and there. The power steering lines, I might go ahead and actually AC compressor. So AC compressor, this thing's actually already junk, doesn't work. I think Mark is gonna wanna put a new one in. So either way, I will have to disconnect these lines, and system's not charged. It's already leaked out from wherever, so I'm not gonna worry about that either. So I'm gonna go ahead, disconnect those lines. You know, got a few coolant lines to disconnect, a few connectors here and there, and then should be pretty simple. The bell housing bolts and the motor mounts, disconnect all those, and like I said, pull the hood off, and probably just pull this thing right out. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to remove this intake manifold completely yet, or if I'll be able to push it out of the way. If I do have to take it off completely, it's not a big deal since most of the bolts are already out, or they all are already out. I just have to disconnect a few fuel lines, a few connectors, and a few vacuum hoses here and there. Not a big deal. But yeah, I guess we'll just get into it. All right, so to start off, decided I am gonna pull off this intake manifold, and for whatever reason, this is probably one of the most complicated Honda manifolds because there is about 100 different vacuum hoses, I mean, that have to come off, but it's honestly not that bad. I think it looks more complicated than it is. All right, so basically what you gotta do, take off this hose from right here, take off this fuel line, just gonna get a wrench onto that thing, and disconnect a few connectors. There's one down here, goes right to there. I already got these ones disconnected from pulling the cylinder head off, and there's also one back here. It's gonna be probably hard to see right there. Gonna pull that off, and then pretty much I believe that's all the connectors wiring wise. And as far as hoses go, you also have to do this hose right here, goes right there. Then there's a hose down here, this one right here, unclips right there. I might end up pulling it off the other side though, down there. It might be easier for me to get to. And also, gotta pull off the throttle cable, obviously. I already got it disconnected from the throttle body, but I gotta pull it off this bracket, the adjustment part. And yeah, I think I'm gonna go from there. That's pretty much what I saw. I'm probably gonna find a few more hoses and I'll cover them when I get to them. All right, we got the intake manifold out, and this was probably one of the most difficult intake manifolds I've had to get off. Definitely for a Honda, for sure. It's a huge pain to get to most of the hoses and connectors and whatnot, and I really don't understand why they have to have about 20 different lines basically connecting to different spots on this thing just to get it out. So had to pull this one off, obviously this one, which goes to here. So this goes to this is your upper radiator hose, which is, I don't understand why it has to connect to the intake manifold, but it's just the way they do it, I guess. This connector back here was a pain. So is this one, because they have these rubber things over them that are stuck on there. You can't get them off. And you also had to remove this one, this hose right here. I don't know if I mentioned this hose. Obviously, you got to pull that off, the fuel line. The hose that goes right here was a hose that goes there, but that's already been removed. I pulled both these hoses off, these two vacuum hoses. And I think the biggest pain to do was this hose down here. It's pretty hard to get to because it is underneath the intake manifold. And yeah, so got it out now. Finally, it took long enough. But I'm definitely not looking forward to putting this thing back in the car. But guess it is what it is. So I think next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to just start disconnecting the coolant lines and connectors on the block. So I think I got a ground or just a wire right there I got to disconnect. Got a few coolant hoses, got to disconnect this one down here. Got to disconnect the wires for the starter and whatnot. Another thing I wanted to point out about the starter. So when I did this transmission, I noticed that someone else is on the clutch in it before and is missing a starter bolt. Probably because it is pretty much impossible to get to when you do the clutch with the intake manifold on and all that stuff on the car. So I think I'm going to order a new starter bolt to finally put that back in, because whoever did the clutch before I got to it never put that bolt back in, and I didn't even bother touching it because whatnot. So I'm definitely going to get a new starter bolt finally, so that's good. And got to disconnect the other bottom starter bolt, and I'll probably pull the starter out, get this coolant hose disconnected and a few connectors, whatnot. But yeah, it's not too bad. It's definitely a lot more on this side you got to pull apart, while this side pretty much has nothing I have to do to it other than the motor mount, because exhaust headers, of course my light's about to die. It just died, but pretty much just the headers, and they're already disconnected. I can pretty much just pull them right out, and they're not really in the way anyways right now. So yeah, I'm gonna get to that. All right, so I got this coolant hose off, a few other ones, the one down here, just moved it out of the way. But there's definitely a lot of corrosion on this thermostat housing, that coolant hose. But I got the starter out, and also there's two ground straps down here that connect to these two 10mm bolts, one right here, the other one right there. And got a few more connectors taken off, this AC compressor connector, a few other ones, and I got the starter out. And funny enough, that second bolt I was telling you guys about was actually sitting underneath the starter. So sitting right underneath it right there, so I won't have to go buy another one. It's already got it. I don't know why it was there, how it got there, but it's there, so that's pretty sweet. And I think now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'll just end up pulling that exhaust manifold up and out of the way so it's not right there. And I'm going to think that I'm going to start doing the bell housing bolts now, and basically do the two up top and then start working my way around each side and then get onto the car, undo them at the bottom, and then from there probably do the motor mounts and a few other things I'm going to have to unbolt, and then I can pull this thing right out. All right, next day out now. Ended up getting pretty late, so I ended up leaving last night, but pulled the hood off just because I know I'm going to have to pull it off. When I pull this engine out, I'm just going to use the crane, lift this thing right out, so did that. And also got the top bolt on this side out, but just loosened the one on that side. I think I am going to have to drop the transmission mount so I can tilt this thing. That way I can get that bolt out, because it's going to hit the firewall, as you can see. So not a big issue, but yeah, so I'm going to pull off all the bell housing mounts now, or bolts. Pull off all the bell housing bolts and go from there. All right, so we're under the car right now. Got all the bell housing bolts out, as you can see, all the way around. There's one, two. These two are 14mm. The rest are 17. So there's one right here, one right there, and then that one up there. That one's the only one I can't get out because it is up against the firewall. So I think I'm gonna pull the engine out and then take that one out, slowly unthread it as I take this thing out. And then on this side, we got this one right here, and then there's one. It's probably gonna be hard to see on camera, but It's up there. That's the hardest one to get to, since normally the ones up top are pretty hard on the other side, but since I don't have the cylinder head off, I could get that one pretty easy. So yeah, now I'm just gonna go ahead and I think I'm gonna go ahead and take this AC compressor off. So it's 2 bolts down here, and then there is 2 up here as well, 1 and 2. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I think I'm just gonna be able to leave this in here instead of disconnecting these lines. But I think he's gonna replace that anyways, so I'll probably have to. But for now, I think it's easier just to disconnect it and see if I can get the engine out without having to pull those lines off. All right, so went ahead and got the AC compressor unbolted. As you can see, it's out of the way now. And also went ahead and got all the engine mount bolts out. There's 4 of them. I left 1 in on each side because I'm gonna attach the crane to this thing now. As you can see. But yeah, so I gotta attach crane to this thing and hold it up, and then I'll take out those last 2 bolts and then see if this thing comes out or not. Now I think I'm gonna have to take this piece off too, because it's got about a 1/4 inch gap between that and the oil pan. I think it's 1 bolt down here and then 2 on top, and I don't think I'm gonna have enough room to pull this engine out this way. I might be able to lift it up a little bit and clear this, but I think I'm gonna have to end up taking this off, and I might end up pulling the crank pulley off because I don't think I'll have enough room to clear anything with that on as well. But we're gonna see. So I'm gonna put this thing on the crane. All right, so what I ended up doing is taking off the crank pulley, or at least the outer piece for the supercharger. You have to install this, so it's the outer crank pulley basically. And also went ahead and took off that little rubber thing right there, and I undid the bolts and pushed that thing all the way in. So got a lot more clearance down there now. Hopefully it's enough. But now I'm just gonna go ahead, and I realized that I think these are Subaru head studs, are actually the same thread as the S2000. And so I'm gonna use these and hook a chain up to these and hopefully pull the thing right out. We're gonna see. But I'm not using the head studs that came off of this because I don't want to ruin those ones. And these ones are junk anyways. I just had them sitting. They're never going back in a car. So I'm gonna use these and see how it goes. All right, so got both all the bolts out on these engine mounts on both sides, and we got the chain on, and we're gonna see if this thing comes out. All right, finally got the engine out now. Was actually a pain to get out. There looks like there should be a lot of room. It's actually not. But got it out, and I have never seen anyone really. I mean, I'm sure people have done it, but I see everyone always take the transmission out with it or drop the subframe and pull everything out through the bottom and whatnot, but did not do any of that. And I think I probably should have pulled the transmission out with it because this is gonna suck putting back in. But got it out. So I guess that's probably gonna be the end of this video. And it's kind of crazy how hard this thing is to get out when it's literally this big, and that's how big the engine bay is. But oh well, just how it goes. And yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention, I don't think I mentioned this, was that you gotta make sure you pull the shift fork out, otherwise obviously you can't get the clutch out. I don't remember if I said that part or not, but yeah, got it out finally. It's definitely a pain, but not bad. That's gonna wrap it up though, and peace.